Hey guys, wanted to do our process for installing a new belt on the KRX 1000. Before I go any further, as always, got to aggravate you guys. Click like and subscribe. Just lets us know we're not wasting our time and kind of shows us who we're catering to as far as YouTube views goes. But yeah, changing the belt super easy. Just a list of everything you'll need. You'll need your spreader bolt for your secondary. It's a 10 millimeter by 1.25 thread. Long extension, short 3/8 extension, 10 millimeter socket, 12 millimeter socket, 3/8 ratchet, a fresh Scotch-Brite, not some old nasty one, a can of brake clean, some shop towels, and then of course your new belt. We sell both OEM and G-Boost. We personally use G-Boost on our machines because they're not as hard as the stock ones. They're a little bit stickier, so they grab better, and they've got a year warranty. It's hard to beat. If you break one, contact G-Boost. They'll run you through the process. I think it's like 20 or 25 bucks. They send you a new belt. Like I said, we carry both, but we prefer these. So if you're interested in these or an OEM belt, we've got them on our store. But yeah, we'll jump right into install, guys. So get back here to your clutch cover. There's 12 10 millimeter bolts, or 10 millimeter head bolts that you'll pull out. There's two bottom ones down here. You can see there and there under that drain. I use the short 3/8 extension and then the medium to long 3/8 extension and kind of get in there sideways. If you want to go a step further, you can remove these 3 bolts on this metal guard here. It makes it easier. But I'm a firm believer in the less bolts the better, so that's why I do it that way. But if you want to pull these 3 off to make it easier, you're more than welcome to. So let's pull that off. So I've got all the bolts out of the cover. This will drive you crazy, guys, but if you take it and slide it forward, and it doesn't just slide right out. You kind of got to work it around a little bit. Just slide it forward, and if you've got the tree kickers, it's going to be a little bit tough because of right here. You can see out of the corner of the screen, but just slide it out in front of the shock, and you're done with the cover. Next step. Make sure your machine's in neutral also. It'll make everything a lot easier. Take your bolt, thread it in, and do not use an impact on this, guys. Do not at all. Please, please, please don't use an impact on this. Because you'll strip it out, or you can drive it in too far and it'll gouge up the back of the secondary. But put it in there and you'll feel it. Sometimes it'll go through a few stages of getting tight and loose, but you'll feel it stop pretty hard. There we go. So the belt's good and loose there. You can see it drop down in the secondary sheaves. So now that your belt's loose, you've got to remove the cage, which is this piece that sits over the primary. You have, sorry guys, I'm trying to get everything just right. You have 2 10 millimeter bolt heads there, and those are actual bolts. And then, way up in there, there you go. You can see it on the right side of the screen. There's a 12 millimeter nut on a stud. You have to get those out. And when you're pulling those out, if they fall off in there, you can take a long magnet and reach in there and grab it. It's not terrible, but that's your next step. Get the 2 10 mils and then the 2 12 mil nuts on the arms of this side of the primary cage. All right, so I got the cage off, and the cage you kind of got to twist around the shock and the mud flap on the front of the shock, but you'll get it off. Just slide it off. It takes about 7 different ways of turning it and twisting it, but it comes off. Then you want to take, so you've got all the slack in your belt, you want to take it and walk it like that over the top of the secondary, and just as it walks, kind of help it come down on that side there. And then your belt's off. This one's not terrible. I actually just popped it back on there. It was a stock belt I was running before, but I wanted to do it for the video. In your manual, there's a spec you can measure with a set of calipers that'll tell you if your belt's still good or bad. It gives you a measurement in there. We don't use that measurement just because we run the G-Boost belts. And you'll know when a belt's going bad, guys. You'll get squealing on takeoff and high, and you'll smell it. So anytime you smoke your belt, just pull it off and put a new one on there. But all right, we'll get into cleaning the sheaves up. So what I do every time I change a belt, just to be safe, I know y'all have heard about the grooving on the KRX clutches, and you can see where the rubber is laid down, kind of tracks, but my sheaves are still smooth. These are the stock sheaves. I've been running our weights most of the time, and I haven't had a single issue. Let me get the light right. My secondary is super smooth. But what you want to do to clean them is take your Scotch-Brite, and you want to go this way. You want to go up and down. You don't want to go with the groove. You want to go up and down and just clean them off. Just like that, and do both sides of the primary. So do this side and that side, and then get inside of the secondary as good as you can. It's really hard to get in here with the camera guys and show you, but just same deal from center to the edge, center to the edge, and just do the whole thing. So I clean my sheaves off with a new Scotch-Brite pad. So then you want to take paper towels, lint-free cloth, whatever you can get a hold of, and spray brake clutch cleaner on the towel. Do not spray it on your clutches. I'll say it again. Do not spray it on your clutches. Don't spray it on your clutches. Please don't spray it on your clutches. I've seen some people go in here like a fire extinguisher with a can of brake clean. Don't do that. Put it on a rag and just kind of wipe the same way that you did your Scotch-Brite. And just everywhere you think a belt could touch, that it will touch, just clean it off really good with some brake parts cleaner. Same thing for the secondary too. Wipe it off as good as you can, and you can see the stuff that comes off of it. And then we'll pop our new belt on. Alright guys, so we got the clutches Scotch-Brited. We got them wiped off with brake cleaner. Don't spray it on there one more time. We went and washed our belt. I'm not going to show you how to wash a belt in the sink because that's ridiculous. But so we got the belt washed off good. It's good and dry. Clean your greasy fingers too. I know you guys all have greasy fingers. Clean them up before you just start grabbing your belt and touching the sheaves and everything. It may not make a huge difference, but why not just be on the safe side? So take your new belt. So with a belt, you always want to put the writing where you can read it. So I can read it there. So just the same way it came off. Put it over the primary like that, and then lay it into the top of the secondary and just start walking it over. Just make sure that edge doesn't get pulled up too far down there. Just keep walking. Push that down. Keep walking. Push that down. And it's on there. So then you're going to want to pull the secondary spreader bolt out. Pull that out. And then we'll go to the next step. So your secondary bolt's out. That'll allow the sheaves to close back up. Then you just want to walk it backwards like that and let the belt ride up until it gets to the top of the secondary. And you'll feel it start getting more and more pressure on it. And notice I'm doing this without touching the inside of the sheaves, trying to keep them clean to keep the belt from getting contaminated. So your belt's on there, it's good and tight. Next step, your cage needs to go back on there. You see all that gross stuff around the bearing on the cage? Just take a rag, spray brake clean on the rag, not on here, and just wipe all that off and clean it off as good as you can. Once you do that, you'll pop your cage back on, bolt it up. Alright, so cage is back on. Quick tip when you're putting the cage back on, make sure that right there where the bearing is that sits on the end of the primary shaft, make sure that lines up before you just start he-manning that thing on there. You want it to line up nice and smooth. Start your two 10mm bolts there. Then you can put the 12mm nuts on the top and bottom of the back of the cage. Alright, so everything's back together. I'm not going to show you how to put the cover back on because that should be pretty simple. But the most important part of a new belt, blow it out again before you put the cover back on, just because you can't blow these clutches out enough. I do it every couple 100 miles just to be safe. But put your cover back on. I do it a little bit different than what G-Boost says, but it's a similar thing. Put it in low or high. G-Boost recommends high for 15, or I'm sorry, low for 15 miles. Just alternating the throttle. Don't hold it in one spot. Don't go cruise down the dirt road at 40 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, whatever. Just kind of go back and forth for 15 miles. What I like to do is high or low. I just like to ride it around for probably 30 or 40 minutes, letting the belt travel up and down both sheaves, never holding the throttle in the same spot so the belt doesn't sit in the same spot. And then once I get it good and hot, I bring it back, I park it, take the key out, and let it sit for a couple hours. You want to bring the belt up to temp without getting it too hot and without just, going out there and full throttle WFO from the start. Get the belt up to temp, and then you want to let it cool down completely. And that lets the belt set into everything, and you'll be good to go. After that, after you get the belt good and hot and let it sit for a few hours by itself cooling off, send it. You're good to go, guys. Tried not to make this too long, but I wanted to cover everything. To keep your clutches running good, I recommend pulling the cover off every couple 100 miles, blowing it out as good as you can, wiping the sheaves off, whatever you can do. But that's it, guys. Thanks. And again, please click subscribe. It helps us out a ton, more than you'll ever know. And if you have any questions, comments, or anything else, what you want us to cover in the future, let us know in the comments. Thanks, guys.